right, Raja. Thanks so much for being on Attribution Time. I think this is going to be a fun one. Raja and I met back in the days of Lead MD for a short stint. Since then, we've kept in touch. He's now running his own consulting, GNW, and we'll get into that a little bit. But Raja, let's just get into it. When did you've been in the space for quite some time as far as marketing operations and all of that? When did you first really interact or engage with marketing attribution? When did that hit you?
So I'd probably say marketing attribution within itself has always been around. We
Right.
call it attribution. We call it multi-touch attribution. The concepts of first touch and last touch have developed over time, but I don't think there was a time where attribution wasn't something that people were, companies and people were driving to get, because ultimately you want to know the source of your revenue. You want to know where to spend marketing dollars, right? So we call it attribution, before it was influence, before it was, return on investment. So now we're in this phase of marketing attribution where we have all of these complex models, right? We've defined what those are. They already existed. We're just putting names to these things now.
Yeah.
So I would probably say it's always been around. And the first time we got introduced with it is, something as simple as I think I've been in the space, like you mentioned, like 10 years, 11 years or something along those times. Yeah. And it was at the very first job. The first job was return on investment. That was attribution, that at that moment in time, attribution. That's attribution. Yep. You want to know, did this event generate this? Was this event part of this? Like I said, so, it's always been at the start. It's just categorically, and now it's been categorized under this funnel over the last couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's spot on, right? That's something I've tried to get out onto the internet, right? Is this has always been a concept. Marketing has always kind of been at the forefront of it, especially within marketing operations, because as technology matured, we've gained the ability to be able to track that better, right? And actually measure those things. But the concept of always having to measure, improve value, always been there. And that's exactly what marketing attribution is.
I mean, even in the old school days before all of this technology existed, and you used to have a Rolodex of business cards, right? And you would write, like I remember one of the individuals I worked with before, his name was Scott. He would take a business card, and when he got it, he would write on the business card, trade show. Like, we're talking like original Marketo conference, like the first one, right? He would write on the trade show, oh, this is where I met this person. This is before all of these tools existed, even like when marketing automation was in its infancy. So you're at some point in time, everyone's always been doing it, whether it's writing stuff down, looking at an Excel sheet, or just trying to generate where are my marketing dollars being spent and how much are we getting back from it. And is that influencing at a broader perspective, other opportunities, relationships, once again, influence, right? So even as something as writing names on business cards and sources, it's always been around, right? There's never been a time where companies we're just making money and we don't care how we're either generating these leads, and B, I don't know, or how much revenue, we're just going to blindly throw money at it. So
exactly. I think the way in which we tell the story is different now, but it's always been this process. So at GNW, I know you're implementing, helping companies with different softwares and things like that. What are you seeing companies do around marketing attribution? Are we still, at least from my experience with implementing Visible and Measure, the purchaser was typically top of funnel people trying to understand how are we engaging, capturing new people, and then you get to that mid funnel. How do we start accelerating deals? Really, those things in which marketing was responsible for, of new leads, value of those leads, and then acceleration of the deals after that. What are you seeing now, or what's your team seeing at this point?
Yeah, so we do quite a lot of Visible implementations and other platforms as well. Like when it comes to Domo or Tableau, or even any kind of third-party attribution tool. But one of the things that we always try to highlight is that it's no longer what model is the best for me. At some point in time, you want to know where source leads are being generated from. So you have to use first touch. You have to use, in the visible world, like you have to know all of these things, right?
Yep.
Now, as far as like how they've been using it, it's an array, right? Because I think it's a combination of not. And one of the things that we always try to hone in on is when we're doing like these implementations and we talk about attribution is that don't focus on just one part of it. Focus holistically on what U-shaped and W-shaped provides.
Yeah.
What is the benefit of pre-marketing qualified before opportunity creation? Even though now at post-op creation we are in the sales funnel, so to speak, what are activities that are engaging, to your point, that are streamlining or helping, move people across the entirety of the funnel? But you want to still be able to report and give attribution credit appropriately to what's generating, what's moving, and then also what's helping, even when marketing isn't involved, right? So I wouldn't say
Yeah.
it's so much like, back like during the LMD days, it was like, oh, this is the model. This model is perfect for you. This is what you're trying to accomplish, right?
Yeah.
Now it's like this model is going to solve this answer. So if you're
Yeah.
looking for this answer, this is what model is going to solve. So how do you and what we've been really doing is taking all of that data set and compiling it inside CRM and creating these holistic reports that show the entire success path, so to speak, the entire
Yep.
life cycle of all of these deals. I won't even say deals, like from prospect to qualified to post op creation. So
Yeah.
it's a combination of all of them. And that's what we really kind of hone in to do. And that's what I've seen, depend generally what companies would want to do. There's
Yeah.
things to be said about, B2C companies who are very focused on acquisition, what
Yeah.
generated source, what cookie the source. That's where they're like that's where their game is. And then
Hmm.
there's companies that who are very like, how is marketing helping? Because once we do a sales handoff, it's sales has to close the deal. There are a
Yep.
few of those, but majority of the trend is across the board, right? Like it's
Yep.
across the entirety from unknown to from an unknown slash anonymous to closed won and or lost,
Yep.
right? So
Yeah. You got
we
to
have we
know
have to know.
both, right?
Yeah,
Um, yeah. I think that's a huge takeaway. And I want to highlight that for whoever's listening is, having an attribution tool that plugs into the CRM where that most people are going to report out of. In more enterprise you go, you'll get into
yeah,
Tableaus and Power BIs and all that. But
yeah,
for those mid markets, right, you're going to be using the CRM to be able to report because that's where sales is, everyone else is, and creating that holistic approach, right? Where did we first start? Where are we going? And having those specific KPIs that you're reporting against. It's like you already have everything that you're supposed to be reporting on.
yeah,
It's the attribution tool gets a little bit more granular for you
yeah,
and it helps you make those better business decisions, right? Doesn't
yeah,
mean you have to share that with at the executive level, but it helps
yeah.
the specific business unit make better decisions.
Yeah, and then also, in the modern day world of data, having more data, especially from a product like Visible that creates thousands upon thousands of touch points that can be leveraged. Maybe it's not immediately, maybe at a certain time, but you're gonna need them in one way, shape, or form. Like having that data helps you even, it helps you create and generate better reports. It helps you and
Mhm.
generate a better data relationship between what a person is doing versus, the milestone marker that they're hitting.
Yeah.
So like I said, and that's what we always try to do at GNW. We always try to like tie in like into a like if you're getting if you need an attribution tool, like you said, you're definitely like past a specific phase and you really want to know how to optimize your marketing budget. You want to optimize some sort of, source data versus marketing dollars versus how we want to spend this, right? You've obviously been asked for these things as well. So if you're investing in a tool, then the data is just going to add on another layer of what your reports that you already have, even if you don't have, some sort of third party visualization data tool or something like that,
Totally.
even if it's something as simple as CRM.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's the piece where a lot of people want to take these different models and then throw this at the executives or the VP and say,
Mm.
look at this. And it's like, no, like
Yeah.
they gave you what you need to report on, keep that. But what this is going to do, it's going to take a a book that has no pictures and then add pictures to it, right? It's going to create a better story. It's going to create more imagery. It's going to enable you to understand all of this at a better level. You don't have to share that, like you don't have to share all those details with the executive. You just have to, now you just know how to tell the story better at the
Yeah.
executive level.
Yeah. No, 100% agree, right? Like executives don't want to see data tools. We always have like this, let's reverse engineer. Like, what are you being asked for? Like at a
Yeah.
KPI level, like what are the executives wanting? Not so
Yeah.
much, and it's changed a little bit since how I used to think about it before. Now, like being an owner of an agency, it's not so much like these are all the data points that we have. How do we create reports from this? It's what are the KPIs as a business that
Yeah.
you need to report on? And let's work backwards into seeing what data point we can plug in to
Yeah.
fit those KPIs, right? You
That's
almost
great.
have to you almost have to reverse start looking at it from a perspective of what does your business need to tick? These are the tools that we have, and now let's see what data points. Because before, when attribution first started, everyone's like, we have all this data, we can create all these reports, and it's kind of like a hit or miss. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
sometimes it was data overload. But
Yeah.
now I think if you look at it from a reverse perspective, it just makes a lot more sense. And that's where you see
Absolutely.
the credibility of these tools is because you have that data to lean on and provide the information that you're being asked for.
Yeah. So good. That is absolute money. All right, Roger. So what's the future of marketing attribution? Where do you see this headed? There's more and more tools saturating
Uh,
the environment. I always say there's always AI, but like what do you
AI.
see, right? We got to throw it
Yeah,
out there,
so
right?
yeah, I know.
Yeah. So where is it headed? Where do you see it going? And maybe break it down. I'm curious because you work within different markets. Like, is there
Yeah.
different segments of businesses, like the small business that's using like B2B business and maybe that mid-market size and maybe that enterprise size? Is there a difference? Is there a change in that? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so like so two parts, right? Like the first part as far as like where it's headed, and the second part as far as like business units and business spaces and what they're utilizing. The first part, I feel like with the introduction of AI, with Google for, with cookie tracking, with being more restrictive, you're going to. I personally think that you're going to see a lot more granular data on buying behavior. It's just
Yeah.
now as far
Yeah.
as like how do you tap into that, that's still the part I don't know, right? Like Visible does a good job. Why we create touch points and we leverage those touch points. If you have well, you may have whatever. Like you could have a data warehouse filled with all this data set, and yeah, I mean that's one part of it. As technology is going to advance, you're just going to get more data and people's day-to-day activity. The newer phones that are coming out, like what the data that they're providing, what the data that they're holding, so what's indicative of buying behavior is going to change. Once
Yeah.
again, I should still say that all of the data points are cool. And when marketing automation first came out, people talked about how we can send all of these 7 emails with like single word CTAs with no
Right.
storytelling, nothing, right? Like so, it's people like us and consultants and generally like in the operations part that has to tame back like, okay, we have all of this stuff, but once again, what are we trying to solve for?
Yeah.
And then let's add, let's measure and use this data to what we're solving for. The
Yeah.
second part, as far as what businesses are doing, I think attribution, whatever you want to call it. If you want to
Yeah.
call it influence, you want to call it acquisition. I think in those smaller markets, acquisition and in the startup world, you have to know where people are coming from, right?
Yeah.
Revenue dollars are good. Obviously, we want to measure that as well, but we want to know what is generating interest in your brand and company. And as you move across mid-market and that into the enterprise space, then you just want to see how your marketing dollars are being invested, what's the
Yeah.
return on them, and how are people moving down those funnels, right?
Yeah.
We see that a lot with, I would say, smaller companies versus bigger companies when we do even something simple as like a tier one implementation, right? And what they're really asking for is, I want to know out of everything that we're doing, what is generating interest and how is that interest translating into opportunities. Then they slowly move into tier two where they have the custom model, or even if they don't have like, a product like Visible, we use it in CRM, we're still using Source. But as we move
Yeah,
mid market, I think just generally that is happening quicker more than it used to. Like people aren't going to tier one Visible just to know where leads are coming from. And if they do, probably within 3 to 4 months time frame, they're asking, okay, we know where people are coming from. This is our market. This is our data set. Now, how do we report on revenue and how do we attribute to all of these things, sales calls, activities, everything that is happening? I feel like
yeah,
that's just happening a lot quicker. Even like when we first started using Visible LMD, that people were so vested in it, but it's just like the time to knowledge is just whatever
totally.
you want to call it is just faster, like generally. So
Yeah, I think we know how to consult on it better too. I mean, you've hit on that several times in this of like my future or my previous way and approach of this was like, here's all this data.
yeah,
Let's show you. Like what, and it was, you know, for the customer, it was overwhelming, but it was also exciting. Like we have all of this at our fingertips
yeah,
now. But to your point, like start with what's the main objective? What are you trying to accomplish? Work backwards. And that's not going to change even in the future. To your point, we're only going to get more and more data. Yes, we're going to a cookieless world, but at the end of the day, everyone's tracking you.
yeah, yeah,
Where, like
yeah.
if
It,
this is what's happening.
uh,
Alexa's listening to you, our phone's listed, like everything's
uh,
tracking you, right? That's not
yeah.
like as much as you want to feel comforted in that cookieless world, that's just not going to be the
Yeah.
case.
I find it so funny to this day that like sometimes I get an email and I'm just like, oh, okay, they probably like I know, oh, okay, they probably got my name off a list. I did something, right? We still get emails sometimes, even our clients, hey, how did you get my information? And I was like, and I always say it's the funniest question. We have a robot that you can talk to that will spit out all of the most knowledgeable things in ChatGPT,
Yeah,
right? Like we have
it
self-driving
could
cars.
scale
We have,
basically the entire internet and give you
right.
information. Yeah,
Yeah, we have, self-driving cars and Teslas, we have electric vehicles, and people in general in the space of marketing are still wondering
yeah,
how their data, like to this day, I'm just like, and we always get asked, like, how do you respond to that? And be like, what I want to say is like, it's 2023, just like you
yeah,
said, people have your data at this point, right?
yeah,
Whether you
yeah,
choose to just move on with your life and unsubscribe is one thing, but people have data, and people have
yeah,
data. They have, they have your buying habits. I browsed a fellow cup for since I like coffee, and then all of a sudden they gave me these things. They said, by the way,
yeah,
you can customize this. All of a sudden, in a completely unrelated platform, I'm like, oh, hey, I do want to customize this. That
yeah,
makes sense. I
yeah.
looked at the URL parameter. It has gclid, it has UTM sources in there, so they
There you
know
go.
exactly how I came to get these custom fellow mugs, right? Like, so they
Yep.
know they have it. From a something simple as a coffee cup, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's spot on. It's something that simple. It's not going away. Well, cool. This was super insightful in so many different ways. Tell me a little bit more about what you're doing at GNW, where you all headed, what's going on there.
yeah, man. It's really funny because like GNW, even the concept, like it was me kind of just doing work, and then it kind of like transferred to a company. Like it just
Yeah.
like a bunch of people just started collaborating together, and lo and behold, like 4 years later, we're a full blown agency. So we're fundamentally a tech agnostic agency. So we are not a Marketo shop. And in that sense, like we have Marketo clients, HubSpot clients, we have Pardot clients, Salesforce Marketing Cloud clients, something as big as Janie and Jack, from Yokohama Tires to something as small as like mom and pop, like B2C companies or B2B
Yeah.
companies that are startup. So, we kind of revelize in the fact because everyone here um, is an operation. Like I've been in MOPs my entire life, right?
Yeah.
Every single person here is in MOPs. Like there's no one here that doesn't like the operations space. And
Yeah.
everyone is multiple, certifications go to a T, but everyone can hop in and out of platforms. So I feel like that was one of the fundamental things I wanted to do is didn't want to be like, oh, like GNW is a really good Marketo agency. They're a really good HubSpot agency. No, they're a group of operational specialists that
Yeah.
can work in any platform. So that's really kind of, and it shows in the fact that we have for a company of our size, have a couple logos, whatever you want to say, like Janie and Jack and Yokohama Tires, University of Irvine. Like, it speaks to the volume of the level of consultants there are. I mean, technically, like, I didn't even change my title to CEO until like this year because I never
Yeah.
felt like I was a CEO, even
Yeah.
though like,
Yeah.
there's like 10 employees and stuff, but I'm still very much involved in the space just because I like it, right? And I
Yeah.
love doing it. I've been doing it for a while, so but that's what we're doing here. We're trying to expand to our skill sets, bring in like a couple paid ads pieces, tie in the dots from paid ads to attribution to platform to CRM, regardless of what it is. So,
Nice.
we do
That's
something
great.
simple as something as basic as not basic, I wouldn't say basic, but something as like Salesforce implementations all the way to like custom integrations with multiple platforms using third-party tools to create like, pull data from either FTP files or different sources and collaborate inside tools. So
Yeah.
it's fun.
That's awesome. Yeah. I my start was actually with Raja, like getting into MOPs. So I can definitely validate the amount of time in which you've been in it. So I try try to get a pop question in there every now and then, but this will be a softball. So tell me the story of the lion for
The
GNW. Like
lion.
what? Yeah, the lion. What? I mean,
Yeah, why
you
is the
could
lion
choose
everywhere?
anything, right? You can choose
Mhm.
any kind of symbol. What is there? What's the value of the lion, or what's the premise around it?
So I put up when I first started GNW Consulting in 2018. I put up the website with a bottle of bourbon over a weekend. So I wrote everything, was very misspelled. I had to, ChatGPT didn't exist,
Yeah,
and I couldn't figure out what to call the company, right? I
yeah,
couldn't figure out. And then as I was building the website, WordPress at that time was like, "What's your favicon?" And I was like, "Man, okay, shit, I need a favicon now."
yeah.
I'm like, "How do I relate this stuff?" So my middle name is Singh, which in Northern Punjabi culture usually translates to like lion. I wouldn't say it translates lion, but the meaning is reference for lions. Whereas like
Okay,
the women in Punjabi culture, their middle names are generally Kaur. We all have the same middle names. Like
got
it's
it.
Gagandeep Singh or Amit Singh or whatever it is. It's always
Yeah,
Singh or Kaur. Kaur means princess. Singh means lion, and giant tattoo,
there you
a
go.
lion. Yeah, so I was like, well, you know what, screw it, I just searched for a lion favicon and a lion logo, and then just I threw it on
There
there
it
as I was
is.
building the website. That was it. There's nothing more to it than that. But
No, it's a good story though. I mean, I learned something new there. I didn't know that was the case.
no,
But that's awesome, man. Well, Raja, thanks so much for being on. This is super just enlightening. I think again, one of my goals is that people can just learn from people like you, hearing this is how we approach marketing attribution. This is what our takeaways are. This is how we communicate this to executives. And so I really appreciate the time today. And yeah, thanks again.
awesome, man. Hey, thanks for having me in. I'm glad that it's kind of cool catching up with people that we worked with in the past and see like how much you've kind of developed into the space as well. So it's always good to see, man. But thanks for
Yeah.
having me on.